This is Triple Play Fantasy. I'm your host, Zach at FF Super Batman. We are here to talk about the AFC West and the divisional breakdown when we come back. All right, welcome everybody in. If you're watching on Twitter, I highly recommend you head over to YouTube if you want to enjoy some conversation with us and drop some comments. You can also be on Facebook. Comments work on there too. Unfortunately, Elon Musk wants to change the name to X, but doesn't want to get us having comments through StreamYard. So head over there. But we are on our last division preview. So if you've been following along, I hope you have. We are finishing up with the AFC West. If you have not been following along, all of our shows are still on YouTube, so go ahead and check all those episodes out. We have two special guests tonight to help fill in the squad. So we have Adreanna. I think she's on my top right. I don't know how these screens work from this side, but she's up at the top. We have Adreanna. How you doing tonight?
Hi, good. How are you?
Welcome back. Great. And I say you were here last year, correct?
I was right before I won the championship.
There we go. So
thanks to our show, of course.
Back to now claim hopefully another championship and help our viewers win.
Absolutely.
There we go. You're back. And then we also have Eric joining us. So we replaced Eric with another Eric. Welcome. We're so happy to have you. How are you doing tonight, Eric?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here. And I have apparently some big Eric shoes to fill. I'll do my best.
Absolutely. And while you still have power. We're keeping you with power for the whole show. And then how are you doing tonight, Brad?
Can't complain, man. Happy to be here with y'all.
You have power this time. I feel like between you and the other Eric, we've had power issues up in the.
We had like back-to-back weeks. Yeah. It was rough weather up here for a little while.
We're not trying to make any. I'm wearing the Chargers. We're not trying to make any puns here with bolts of lightning, but. But with that, Eric, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on though was to talk about the Pros with Joe's charity tournament. Can you tell everybody what that is real quick before we get into the divisional previews?
Sure. I'll try to give the short version, but it doesn't really exist. So Pros with Joe's is a charity fantasy football tournament. This year, as we have been for the last few years, it is comprised of 56 teams that are competing. Each one of those teams is a pair of co-managers, a fantasy pro and industry expert from just about every platform, website, radio station, TV station out there, including Zach Berger himself, paired up with a Joe, an everyday player who donated to that pro's charity of choice in order to win their way into the league. So ends up being a ton of fun, 112 people. The draft itself, we all pile into a Zoom room. It's a bunch of fun. We cut it up and give each other a hard time. And all the while, we raise a ton of money for a variety of different charities, right? I know, Zach, you're playing for LLS again, and the story and the connection that you have there is really inspiring. And that's, one of the things that I like most about this format is that every single one of our pros has some meaningful connection to the cause they're playing for, and you get to hear that testimony and hear why it's important to them and learn a little bit more about them as individuals.
Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me back for a second year. It was a lot of fun last year. I got to play with one of my friends from work. We actually didn't work together anymore, so it was really cool to get to reconnect. And she did not have a lot of fantasy experience, so it was cool. She wanted to more so learn about the game, understand the moves we were making, so that was a lot of fun to kind of get to bring her along. We had Stefon Diggs as our first pick, so we both got the Stefon Diggs, Kick It to Cancer, that whole program. Buffalo Bills jersey, thought it's really cool. So we'll see who we draft first this year. I have no idea yet. We're still waiting on the divisions, but I was excited for that. It was a fun group last year. I mean, we're already talking trash in the group chat from last year's division. So it's a great tournament. It's a lot of fun.
Is already lively this year. It's going to be another fun year. And like you mentioned, we are still actively fundraising. We're raising through the end of the day through 11:59 p.m. on Sunday night. So to get involved, you can head over to our website. It's proswithjoes.com. There you'll register. That'll take you to our donor center where you can see all 56 of our pros. Like I mentioned, Zach is back for another year. We've got Stefania Bell, Marcus Grant, just about everybody from football guys. The Front Yard Fantasy crew has been really good to us. So really, if you consume fantasy content out there, there's a very high likelihood that we have a pro from the place where you consume content, and you get an opportunity to play along with them. So Pros with Joes is the website.
And I put that in the show description if you are over on YouTube, as well as a link to my page if you wanted to donate specifically to LLS for me to have a chance to be on my team. So how it works is every dollar gets you an entry. And so the more you donate, the better your odds are of getting to be in the tournament with me or whoever else you donate to.
That's right.
All right. Well, I appreciate you having me on a second time. Eric, it's been a blast. But with that, we got to start with the AFC West champs, the Kansas City Chiefs. So, Adreanna, tell me about the Chiefs for 2023.
The Chiefs for 2023. Wow. I thought this was going to be an easy one, but you know what? I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult to pick the best players, the best sleepers, the best overalls for Kansas City this year. But the Kansas City Chiefs. I am a Patriots girl, diehard, but I'm also a closet KC fan. And as far as the quarterback goes, I mean, we all know he is the best in the league. We've got Patrick Mahomes, QB1. I had him his rookie year in my league many, many years ago, and it was the best decision I ever made. I just love that man. Last year, he led the NFL with 5,240 passing yards, and he's the most reliable quarterback, in my opinion, in fantasy football. So obviously, I mean, he's going first. I don't care what position I am, I'm drafting him first. That's just me. I think he's trying to break every single one of Brady's records, and he's not going to stop until he gets more and more and more rings. I think the only thing that's going to stop him, honestly, fingers crossed it doesn't happen, is an injury. That's seriously the only thing that could ever hurt him. I mean, that's the only way he can't produce those numbers, but I would go QB1, first overall. I don't care where you draft. Got to take Mahomes. Mahomes is my boy.
So in a QB1 league, would you take him as the 101, or you're saying you would take him for the first QB off the board?
Both.
Okay.
I think
that feels spicy, but I like it.
You know what? Because you're guaranteed. You look, except for obviously with a bye, you look, and he's one of those players that when you start your week, whoever your opponent is, you know you have like 10 to 15 points ahead of them, like guaranteed.
Yeah.
He runs, he passes. I mean, he does it all.
He's on Netflix. So, yeah.
He's on Netflix. And if you haven't watched the documentary, it's pretty dope, actually.
I enjoy it.
I would say, like, I tend to lean towards taking a running back 101, but if I were to go away from that and take a quarterback, it would be Pat Mahomes. He's, like you said, it's pretty much a guaranteed 25 to 30 points every week, and that's not something you can pencil in even with top-tier quarterbacks. He's one of one.
And I think it also comes down to the fact, like, you have to know your league, right? Especially if you're in a redraft and you've been with the same folks for several years. Like, I know in my league, if I don't take him in round one, and I don't care what position I'm, like, what number I'm drafting, he will go first pick round two.
Yeah.
We will take quarterbacks so early in my league. So that's why I'm just like.
It's a great point.
Yeah. You got to know your league. You got to know your people.
Absolutely. So obviously Mahomes is not a sleeper. We all know who he is. Clearly. But who is your sleeper from the Chiefs?
Ooh, okay. So I've got two, but my top sleeper is Sky Moore. You got Juju gone. You got Mecole Hardman gone. So you got Sky Moore. I mean, he was a rookie last year. And really, who's the only other, like, top receiver? Kadarius always injured. Tony? Yeah. This is Sky Moore.
You got MVS track star. Just running routes. Doing nothing with it but running around.
Yeah, exactly. He's exercising. At the end of the day, like, this is Sky Moore's opportunity to shine. He has the ability to play multiple roles in offense. He has game after the catch. You have the openness of the Kansas City receiver room. Sky Moore is in line for a big year. He is my sleeper.
I love Sky Moore. I just hate his number, but I love him. 24 just looks so weird on a receiver. I always think he's the cornerback.
But yes, yeah. I know.
All right.
My other one, my secondary kind of sleeper is Isaiah Pacheco. Because I mean, we know Kansas City loves their running backs. Like they just love them. But honestly, I didn't even realize it until a couple days ago. He actually was number 31 overall last year with running backs with 122 fantasy points, 170 carries for 830 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's huge for a running back. I mean, you don't usually see that. And with like the split backfield, I think that's impressive. So, yeah, you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon, but he's the RB1. That's my pick, my other sleeper.
All right. And then who do you think is overvalued on the squad?
Kadarius Toney. Completely and utterly Kadarius Toney. I mean, so I drafted him last year in my initial draft, right? When he was with the Giants. And because I was like, oh, he's going to be a sleeper for the Giants. Nope. Got drafted. Then, he got traded to Kansas City and he got injured. Shocking. He just keeps getting injured. I mean, his numbers were like wicked impressive when he actually played, right? But at the end of the day, you can't rely on him. He's just going to waste space on your bench. He only played 19 of 34 regular season games. That's like half. Pretty sure. I mean, it's like rough math, but I'm pretty sure that's half. At the end of the day, and not to mention, he already got injured in training camp. So he's questionable for
first
week 1.
practice.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm not putting my eggs in the Kadarius Toney basket this year. No way.
So are any of the other guys here, anybody in on Kadarius Toney, or are we all fading Kadarius Toney? Because I'm fading him.
I'm also fading him. There was a point maybe about 5 or 6 weeks ago where Kadarius Toney was actually going ahead of Sky Moore in ADP.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just gobbling up all the Sky Moore that I could get. Now I think people are starting to sober up to the realization that the likelihood of getting a full season out of Kadarius Toney is very, very slim. So he's sliding down draft boards, right? Like there's a point where, he might be rostered as like my wide receiver 6 or 7, and I want a lottery ticket, maybe, right? But realistically speaking, I completely agree with Adrianna, which is Sky Moore is the receiving weapon, not named Travis Kelce, to roster in Kansas City, right? They ramped him up slowly last year, right? He didn't see the field a ton. When he was out there, his target rate was crazy. He had like a 22% target rate. So the amount of times that he was target relative to the number of routes that he ran. And over the course of the stretch run and the saw Chiefs really go out of their way to incorporate Sky Moore into their offense. We all saw the touchdown in the Super Bowl, but week over week preceding that, he was seeing more and more playing time. He was running more and more routes. I think some people have a tendency to kind of call him a potential bust coming out of his first year, but in reality, I think Andy Reid had a plan for Sky Moore and they've been following it, and that leads them to this point where he should really be the focal point of their passing offense out of the wide receiver room.
Yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head there. I think the only thing that I might be interested in Kadarius Toney with is I could see myself trading for him during the season, maybe if he's hurt, or if I want to tag him into a trade with as a secondary piece or something like that, because on a week-to-week basis, he is liable to have a home run. He is liable to have 5 catches, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But like you guys said, he's going to be injured, and we know that. So to price that in and maybe get him on a trade, that's probably something I'm more leaning to. But drafting him would just be too expensive for his injury history.
Absolutely.
100%.
And then there's really only one rookie to talk about that they drafted from an offensive perspective. So tell us about Rashee Rice real quick. Are you drafting any Rashee Rice?
Oh, yeah, I am. And I usually go running back heavy, but I like Rashee Rice. I also like, respect, and very much trust Andy Reid, and he doesn't make these kind of mistakes. There is a reason he traded up. He traded up in the second round for this pick. He is no fool. So I think Rashee Rice, I'm going to say it now. I'm saying it now, August 24th. He is going to be their wide receiver 1 at the end of the season. We
need to clip that. We need to clip that.
I'm saying it. Just remember I said it.
A note. What time? All right, got it.
Okay, I'm serious. I mean, outside of Kelsey, there's no other pass catcher that has surpassed 700 receiving yards, and he's going to be the one to do it. There are a lot of targets vacated in KC, and he's good to lead all the receivers on the team. I'm telling you. I really, really like him. I was looking up some of his stats from SMU. I mean, last year, I'm just going to throw these numbers out there because they're pretty freaking impressive. 96 passes for almost 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns in one season. Pretty good. I like it. I mean, yeah, they have a lot of receivers, and I know we were talking about Sky Moore, obviously. Kadarius kind of injured Tony, and then, everybody else. But I think he's going to
Justin Ross.
Yep.
Justin Watson. Too many guys.
Justin Watson.
God almighty. But I'm telling you, he's going to do it.
I love hearing Justin Watson's name because anytime you hear his name, I can just see him running nothing but 9 routes just straight down the field.
He catches one 50-yard touchdown.
Right?
There you
go. Yeah, I mean, I like Rashee Rice as a prospect, right? If we talk about kind of pure athleticism, ball skills, ability to separate in this wide receiver room, I mean, he either is or is very close to the most talented wide receiver in those categories. The thing that gives me concern is a lot of the point that I was making with Sky Moore, right? I think we see Andy Reid kind of ramp him up gradually over the course of the season. So if we're talking about a dynasty prospectus, Rashee Rice is probably my favorite target on the Chiefs offense. If we're talking about redraft, I think this year coming is probably a bit more Sky Moore, but kind of like we saw with him last year, as we get down the stretch run, I think we're going to see incrementally more Rice week over week.
But you know what? I personally, I've always been a fan of rookies just in year after year in all my leagues. I like to always have I'm usually 60% rookies on my team. And because you know what? People get hurt. People get old. Coaches want to change. They don't want you to expect the expected. They want you to expect the unexpected. So by throwing in a Rashee Rice, I'm telling you, he's going to be given one shot to prove himself, and he better, swim, not sink. And I think if he does that, he could just, he could be Sky Moore early.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, so I think we all think the Chiefs are going to be dominant again this season. But if any team in the division, I think, can take their crown, it's going to be the Chargers. But that's assuming that they also can stay healthy, which this team, I think, is more snake bitten than Kadarius Toney. Every time you think they have something going on, they get hurt. But that's why I think Justin Herbert, so he's obviously their clear starter. I think he's actually undervalued this year in fantasy. I think he's going around like QB6, depending on your league scoring. I mean, I get it. He doesn't run as much, but I think people forget that he actually was a solid runner the first 2 seasons. He put up plenty of points. He averages 26 points per game his first 2 years, and he dropped down to 19 points last year. He was hurt. What was it, like week 3 around there? He broke his ribs. His offensive line was hurt. His wide receivers, none of them could stay healthy all at the same time. And his offensive coordinator didn't want to throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field. So all of that has changed going into the season. So I'm all in on Herbert. Especially if you miss out on the Elite 3 up at the top. I would not mind waiting around round 5, round 6. Grab yourself some Herbert. You can even try to stack him with one of his wide receivers, and I think that would be a great combination for you in fantasy this year. Looking at the sleepers, they don't really have a lot of sleepers. We all know who all their guys are, but I would probably say it's Mike Williams is the closest. He feels like he's being slept on again just because as we keep talking about injuries, he feels like he makes these amazing catches and doesn't know how to land on his 2 feet. And he falls down violently onto the ground and gets hurt every time. But he's wide receiver 28 right now, which feels pretty low for the type of talent he has. He has wide receiver 1 ability. It really just comes down to his availability. But I like that value for him, going around 71st overall right now. Overvalued, again, feels weird to say this, but Austin Eckler as the running back 2.
Whoa.
I know. I don't know who else to pick on the squad. I mean, he has scored so many touchdowns, and he's got the most by a lot right now. I think he's at 38 over the last 2 years, something crazy like that. Next closest is not even close. Was it like 26? Something insane like that. But eventually that's got to stop, and they're going to be throwing more touchdowns than him just running it in every time. He's an amazing talent. I love him for fantasy football. He is like a great advocate for fantasy football. So this is not a shot at him as a person, as a player. It's just as his value. As the RB2, that's a ceiling. Like, you are drafting him at his complete ceiling, and anything less than that, he's going to potentially hurt you as your first pick in the first round. I'm going as RB2. So that's why I'm saying he's overvalued. He could still be amazing. I'm just afraid that he's not going to be as effective as he has been the last 2 years. And he even says it himself. He doesn't want to be on the field as much as he is. He would like less touches so he can stay fresher. And so, again, he'll be there near the goal line. I just don't see him scoring 20 touchdowns again. So that's why I'm saying he's overvalued. Love him. And I can tell Eric right now is about to agree with me and is so excited that I said he was overvalued.
Yeah, I'll wait for Brad and Adriana in case they have a dissenting opinion, but I'm in lockstep with you, Zach.
No, I got to hear this, Eric, because I'm pretty shocked at that. Austin Eckler is probably, I think I have him at RB3 on the year, so he's one of my favorites.
I mean, I think the argument is pretty practical in nature, right? Like, sort of removing the nameplate and the jersey from the player. Like, if you're having to draft someone and they have to have their ceiling or their best career year in order to pay off their ADP, like, mathematically you're putting yourself in a position to be disappointed, right? So, like, anytime that's the case, like, I'm always concerned in general, right? Like, I think that where he's being taken, there's really only downside to acquiring him. But then, more practically speaking, I think we're getting geared up for an entirely different Chargers offense, right? Like, with Kellen coming in, it's not going to be the Lombardi dink and dunk, drop down to the underneath flat for Austin Eckler to catch 100 passes again, right? Like, so much of Eckler's value is as a pass catcher, right? If you remove his receiving work, he's right around the middle of the pack in that kind of RB2 jumble, which is still plenty productive, but you don't feel very good about that if you spent the 3rd or 5th or 7th overall pick on him, right? So, I think part of it is just kind of a general rule that drafting players at their ceiling usually leads to a bad time. But I also think that we're going to see Justin Herbert really emerge as the focal point of this offense and really push the ball vertically, given that Lombardi is now out of town.
And does anybody want to guess how many 1,000-yard rushing seasons that Eckler has in his 6-year career?
Maybe 1.
3.
He's got 0. Last year was his best year with 915 yards. Now, again, he is amazing in the air, and that's where, especially in PPR, he's getting tons of points. But, he does not run as much as you think he does.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Zach.
That's just my concern is if he doesn't get those receptions like we're used to, which now we have 3 hopefully healthy wide receivers, like you said, a whole new passing offense. I'm just concerned that he might get some we'll call them cheapy touchdowns near the goal line, but I'm afraid he's going to lose a lot of his touches that we're just so used to him dominating.
So, I mean, to me, it's like I never viewed Austin Eckler as, challenging for 2,000 rushing yards in the year. It was the fact that he does get so many receptions and so many targets that really provides a lot of floor for him if he doesn't get that rushing upside. So it's not like he's, a slot back that, he's going to lose out on targets that way. Like, he's getting the screens, he's getting the dink and dunk drop offs, he's getting those passes that are always going to be there when a quarterback is under pressure. And that's just the nature of the NFL. Your quarterback's going to be under pressure. So to me, he's not going to be used in, some 3-headed monster rotation, running back rotation. He's going to be the primary back. He's going to get the red zone touches. I understand the argument, like, you would be drafting him at his ceiling, but at the same time, anybody that you're drafting top 5 it's hard to have value at that pick. Like, you're just going to be drafting somebody that you can depend on to have a solid floor at like 15 plus per week. So
sure, and I get that. I'm just saying, like, for example, Jamar Chase. Let's say he's top 5 pick. I don't think we've seen his ceiling yet, for example.
I would agree. Yeah.
Like
Right.
Christian McCaffrey, he's probably around his ceiling too. You could probably make the same arguments you are for Eckler, like we are for Eckler for CMC. Justin Jefferson, he's getting near there, but he doesn't score the touchdowns like you would think he would. So he might still be able to so that's where I 100% agree that at the top of the draft, everyone should be around their ceiling, but there's definitely a few players that I feel like we have not seen their best yet.
But at the same time, you just mentioned he's not even rushing for 1,000 yards yet. So if
he's not going to rush for 1,000 yards this year either.
No.
It's unlikely, but when we talk about ceiling potential, if I'm getting a running back that is going to get, over 100 targets per season, I don't need you to rush more than 1,000 yards. I'm getting a mid-tier wide receiver that can also get 15 touches on the ground. I don't know. I like that there's not exactly a consistent argument on either side, but that's interesting. I hadn't considered him being overrated.
And that's what I love disagreements, because that's what the people need to hear, is that there's multiple options for fantasy football.
If you have to pick somebody right on the Chargers, I can see the argument for Eckler, because he is great if you don't have receivers like last year.
Yeah.
Right. We weren't both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. It was just Josh. It was him and Josh Palmer, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he had to shine. But other than that, he's your pinch hitter.
Fair. But also,
and Herbert couldn't throw deep last year after that rib injury, so it was so much easier just to do a dump off to Eckler. And again,
right.
I think Eckler is very talented. I'm concerned that there's now a lot more weapons in a different offense that we may see him slide. He could still be RB5, RB6. He could still be great. I'm just afraid that he's not going to return that RB2 value you're hoping he gets you as a top 4 pick in your draft.
Yeah.
Let's get Eric's team in the mix here.
Yeah, you want to go with the lowly Raiders?
Yeah, the lowly Raiders are probably going to be pretty quick, right? In terms of the QB situation, Jimmy G, after some uncertainty about his health yet again, has now been named the starter. It looks like he's going to be available for the beginning of the season. And generally speaking, outside of Superflex, he's not somebody that I'm looking to target, right? This isn't a particularly high passing volume offense. Jimmy G's average depth of target is well below league average, right? So he can't do anything with his legs, and you have to worry about the injury concern. So there's really nothing to look for from this QB position specifically for the Raiders. The fantasy sleeper, I guess it really depends on how much you are concerned about the Josh Jacobs situation. If you have any degree of concern, then Zamir White immediately becomes someone to consider and is worth a later round flyer. We've seen him look pretty good in the preseason this year. Obviously, if Jacobs misses any time, or he's now back in camp, so the likelihood of him deciding to hold out again is pretty slim. But any injury were to crop up, maybe over the course of the season, as this team kind of starts heading towards thinking about future seasons, maybe they want to see what they have in the kid, and you see him kind of take a little bit more of that workload. Obviously, Josh McDaniels is historically running a pretty running back heavy type of system. So, certainly worth a stash, especially if you either drafted Josh Jacobs or you have concerns about how often he'll be on the field. Overvalued player is kind of tough, right? I think Devontae Adams is going right about where he should be, right? I think you're getting fair value on him. Josh Jacobs, in my opinion, is being underdrafted, right? We've seen him continue to slip into drafts, slip down draft boards, I should say, despite being one of the few running backs in today's NFL that pushed for 400 touches last year, right? That just doesn't exist anymore, and he's the lone example of it. So I think he actually represents value. So, I guess to the extent that Jimmy G's being drafted, he's probably being overvalued.
Just drafting him at overvalue.
Yeah, exactly. If you roster him, you have overpaid for him. I'm not buying into Jacoby Myers or Hunter Renfrow or any of the secondary pieces, just because, I mean, Devontae Adams saw 180 of the 500 pass attempts last year, right? Like, there's just not really a whole lot to go around for these secondary pieces in this kind of plodding, outdated offense. And then the rookie pool is pretty thin, right? Like, you're either looking at Michael Mayer or Aiden O'Connell. Maybe Aiden O'Connell will get his opportunity as Jimmy G presumably doesn't play 17 games, right? He's only made it through a full season once in his career. So whether it is injury that creates the opportunity for him, or like I alluded to earlier, maybe the Raiders kind of start packing it up and look to next year and future seasons, and they want to see what they have in the kid. There's some chance there. Michael Mayer, I mean, usually rookie tight ends take a while to, develop and get on at the NFL level. So I don't think that you're really doing yourself any favors by rostering him, at least in a redraft context.
Absolutely. Nope. I think it's spot on. I think it's all Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, and if you don't feel comfortable with them, you just avoid the Raiders altogether for fantasy football.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I know you have to run, Eric, to another show, but I appreciate you coming on to talk with us about the AFC West as well as Pros with Joes, and I'll be seeing you soon as we do our draft coming up real quick.
Yeah, I appreciate you making a little space for me. I'm sorry I have to run. This is like our crazy promotional tour, so I just go from one to the other.
No, you got to do your car wash. I get it.
Yeah, man. Go do your thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
All right. So with that, Brad, you got to finish us off with the
stinker.
Let's ride. Yeah. They could be great or they could be a Subway sandwich, but the Denver Broncos.
Yeah. A lot of my opinion on the Broncos kind of hinged on the news that Jerry Jeudy was carted off the field today. So that's a pretty big blow for them. Looking at the quarterback position, I wrote an article for Fantrax last year before the season that I was really low on Russell Wilson. He was coming off of injuries. He's going to have a new coordinator and a new head coach for the first time in a long time. And typically when that happens, you don't see the best production historically from Russell Wilson in his career. And this year is the same thing. He's got a new coordinator. He's got a new head coach. He's a year older. He's still got those injuries that he's battling. And now he's down Jerry Jeudy, at least for the immediate foreseeable future. So Russell Wilson's pretty much undraftable for me. If you were to, pick him up off the waiver wire and he was a streaming option for you, I could see that being a little more interesting. But in terms of drafting, I just can't do it. I understand the argument of, just looking at his body of work and expecting him to kind of go back to form and regress to his mean, which is Hall of Fame caliber level of play. I can understand that, but it's just, I don't know. It's kind of a recency bias thing for me. I don't think Russell Wilson still has it in him to be a top 15 quarterback in the league right now. In terms of rookies, I really like Marvin Mims now. He's their rookie out of Oklahoma, I believe. And he's going to be able to step into that spot that Jerry Jeudy's going to vacate when he's absent right now. So you look at Cortland Sutton, you look at Greg Dulcich, and you look at now Marvin Mims being their really trio of pass catchers right now. It's a pretty thin depth chart. So I like him there. And then in terms of who could be underrated as sleeper, I like Samaje Perine. The running back out of Florida, he kind of made his bones with Cincinnati. So we've got a running back situation there where he's going to be used as kind of a two-headed monster. He's got Javonte Williams in front of him, but he suffered a season-ending knee injury in week 4 last season. So that doesn't mean he's not going to be, back up and ready to play, but I find it hard to believe that they would use all of his just give him normal reps coming off of a season-ending injury like that. So Samaje Perine is a very sneaky pick. I don't expect the game script to be in the Denver Broncos' favor a lot this year. So expecting him to get a ton of rushing yards is probably not what you want to do. But if you want to have him as a handcuff, I think that's a nice option. And again, like if you were to tag him on in a trade package later in the season, that's something you could look into as well. But aside from that, there's just not really a lot of fantasy relevant players on Denver this year.
No.
Yeah, I agree. Mims, I think, is a nice sleeper that you can get late in your draft. I was really excited for Dulcich going into training
I was
camp,
too.
and now it looks like Adam Troutman may be the tight end one on the team. I don't know, and Troutman got beat out at the Saints, so I don't trust any of them. And then I love Jerry Jeudy going in this year, and literally today he was on my graphic, he's on the thumbnail. I had to switch it up this afternoon when unfortunately he got hurt. I put on Javonte Williams. And I didn't think Williams would be anywhere near ready for the season. And now he might be ready before Brees Hall. But then, like you said, what's his workload look like? Because just because you're practicing and you're warming up doesn't mean you're ready for a full workload. So
even last year
agree,
he was splitting carries with Melvin Gordon. So it's like,
and I'm fine. I don't expect anyone to be like a workload, but like I want them to get the valuable touches. And I don't know what they're gonna do. Sean Payton, who knows what he's planning. So yeah, Denver's just one of those weird like enigma teams where like there's so many decent sounding names, and then you think about it for like another second, and you're like, I don't want to draft them.
It's like the pre-retirement home for a lot of players. It really is. No, honestly, I mean, I hope Sean Payton can clean up this offense, but the whole damn team. But let's be real, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. And Greg Dulcich that's a great point because you look at last season's regime and who was in charge then, and he really made a run. Like and even the routes that he's running were deep, not like little dink and dunk crosses. Like he's going deep. He's going on stream routes, 9 routes, and all that. So it's just now with hearing like Troutman might be their tight end one. It's just it's tough, man. Whenever you have a new person coming in charge, kind of your old. It's always what have you done for me lately? So it's whatever is going on in this camp is going to be, the end all be all for this season. And I don't know. It's just everybody's kind of overrated and overdrafted looking at their numbers right now. So it'll be interesting to see where things shake out when the season actually gets going. But I can't imagine anybody on the Broncos being fantasy relevant.
So maybe you recommend fading them in your drafts, keeping an eye on them for waiver wires or for future trades. Maybe if you see a bright spot in the schedule, trade for them when they're low, get a good value on them, and see if they give you a few good weeks.
Cortland Sutton might be the only one that you can make an argument for, especially if they're going to be down every game. He's going to get like 10 targets, but outside of that, yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm sorry to end it on such a depressing team. I know we always usually finish with all the teams, but I mean, sometimes I have hope. Yeah, but everyone wants the Chiefs in the beginning. You can't save them for the end, Sometimes you have to have your dessert first. But Adreanna, do you have any closing words for us on fantasy football? Getting ready for, I know you have some drafts coming up.
Ooh, God, closing words.
Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
What? Rashee Rice?
That's your guy this year.
Gosh. Go rookie heavy. It's never steered me wrong. And draft Bijan.
All right.
I know it's not AFC West, but I don't care.
That's okay. Awesome. And where can everyone find you?
Okay, you can find me on Twitter /X, Instagram, Facebook, all the things, all the social networks at Peace, Peace, and the word AND, Plenty with an I, Plenti. It's my business. That's where I do most of everything from, or at Adreanna Spez.
Perfect.
That's easy. So yeah, thanks for having me,
guys.
Having
on. And Brad, do you have anything to close out? All right.
Yeah. You can catch me on Fantrax. I do baseball, basketball, and football on there. So we'll have a lot of more draft content ramping up now. But and yeah, at Sir Bradley K on Twitter.
Awesome. Cool. Well, with that, guys, we're gonna head out. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that fun stuff to Triple A Fantasy. We got you covered not just with football, but basketball, baseball. We got it all. That's why we're Triple Play Fantasy. We will get you probably at least one more mock draft before the season gets started, and then we'll get you ready for week 1 coming up real soon. So make sure, like I said, you subscribe and you tune in all season so we can get you that fantasy football championship. Have a great one, everyone.